welcome to Pop Go the Writers. I get thrown off because I kind of want to do the pop when I say Pop Go the Writers,
Yeah.
but that's not how we always did it. We've always done it at the end. So I pause for a second, thinking, nope, pop at the end.
You need is another person that's able to do the pop when you say pop. It's too bad you don't have another person who could do that thing. But honestly, I have no idea how to do that thing.
Well, it started because of Paul.
Yeah, I know.
He did it.
You should record Paul doing it.
Just a little graphic of Paul pops up.
Uh-huh.
Pop.
It just comes. Yeah, it's a pop-up.
Like the old pop-up videos.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes. Oh, those were the days.
Yeah, we have a ton of stuff to talk about tonight. Last week was a little odd because Jim didn't make it. So I spent the time talking about Ahsoka and Loki and filled up about 40 minutes before I went, I'm done talking.
Let's just be honest. I fell asleep. And you know what? For some reason, I didn't set the alarm. I've been really good about setting an alarm for 8:50 p.m. because that's what it is in my neck of the woods. And I don't know. I don't remember what the hell was going on. That was my first day of vacation, so maybe that was my excuse. And this is my last day of vacation. But I actually set the alarm for tonight. Last Sunday, I was so mad at myself that I said, damn it, Alexa, set an alarm for next Sunday at 8:50 p.m.
Well, all right. So what we're going to talk about, we want to start off with the sad passing news. There's 3 people who have passed recently. Of course, today we learned of Suzanne Summers, who, of course, was in Three's Company and a bunch of other TV shows, and then also was a spokesperson for the Thigh Master, which I think jump started a lot of guys into puberty at a certain time of their life. And then she passed away today in her 70s. I don't remember exactly the age.
It was 770 something. Yeah, I don't remember exactly what it was.
We also lost Mark Goddard from Lost in Space and a few other shows, of course. But that's probably what he's best known for.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and then the big one for Jim and I, because, when we're both in the comic industry, and there's a point where you're dealing with these people and they're the stars of the industry, and then you get into the industry and they become peers and they become friends, and you talk to them and you hang out with them and stuff like that. So when we lose somebody, it really stings, because in a lot of ways the comic industry is a giant family.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah.
And we lost Keith Giffen, who is just a brilliant, curmudgeonly writer and artist. And I remember when Image came out and his book Trencher, and I remember reading Trencher thinking, what in the hell is this? And then running to get the next issue. There was all his time on Legion, where he co-created Lobo. He co-created Rocket Raccoon with Bill Mantlo.
And Ambush Bug. We got to say the most important one to me personally is Ambush Bug.
And the most recent Blue Beetle, the Jaime Reyes version.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a sign of a guy who, his creativity just, keeps going. It wasn't like at one period, it just keeps going and going. In an industry of very unique individual personalities, he was even more unique and more of an individual personality. He was a one of a kind, kind of guy, and not just an artist, but writer, plotter, everything. Just one of those all around Renaissance,
Yeah.
guys.
And you can't talk about him without talking about his collaboration with J.M. DeMatteis and the Justice League, the Wahaha Justice League, and how brilliant that was.
Mm-hmm.
I searched out and found the pages of Batman punching Guy Gardner because it's just such a brilliantly done little scene.
Talk about a book that I couldn't wait for the next issue, to come out. I mean, with for one thing, the Kevin Maguire art, where he was just like, where did this guy come out of nowhere, kind of a thing, and it was different from everybody else. To a book that was both a comedy and serious at the exact same time. Who would have ever thought to have a funny Justice League comic?
Oh, I know. Led by Batman. Who would think Batman was funny?
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. I think of the one issue that I love where they went undercover. It had something to do with Queen Bee, and they went undercover, and Batman went undercover as Bruce Wayne, as Batman posing as Bruce Wayne. And he kept telling everybody he wasn't really Bruce Wayne. He was just posing as Bruce Wayne. Which it was, it was like, how genius is that?
Yep. Yeah, Keith is going to be missed, and there was so many amazing outpourings. About him and stuff. So
Paul Levitz in particular has been doing several posts about it because he keeps thinking of another aspect of his relationship with Keith, and I love it because in some ways it's like it's love letters, but he's also not like pulling some punches. He was saying like Keith could be difficult. Keith would tell you when he did not like something, but one of the things that he just said was that to Keith, like, credit was not something that he cared about. It didn't matter where an idea came from. It was only that it was a good idea or a bad idea. And I think that's pretty amazing in an industry with a lot of egos in it,
Yeah. Yep. So.
The heckler. I was trying to think of that other weird thing that he did. The heckler.
Yep.
Jeez.
Well, our condolences to the family, friends, and fans of all three. So, if you've been following my Warhammer stuff and you have a store near you, they're giving away a new Space Marine this weekend.
Wow.
So you just have to show up and ask for it. And
what makes that one different from other ones? The pose?
The pose, the gun. He's got kind of a sash in front where not all of them do.
Okay.
So
remind me, will that eventually be part of something that's for sale, or do you think that pose will always be just that giveaway one? Or
Oh, no. They have those for sale.
Okay.
They pick every month. They pick one figure to give away.
Gotcha. Okay, gotcha. It's not like it was made exclusively to be given away.
No.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so these will fit into your armies.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's very, very cool.
And I like doing it because it gives me a lot of different figures to paint and to try different painting things on.
Yeah. Now, have you played yet?
I did. I played against my nephew, and this was all newer rules for him, and I had never played, so it went longer than we expected. So we ended up calling the game. I think I would have won if we kept going, but and I learned a lot from that game. I made some mistakes early on. I played into his advantage. His squad is better at long range shooting, range attacks, and my guys are better rushing in. So I should have charged and done stuff like that.
Okay.
But once I figured it out, the tables turned.
I actually went to Walmart yesterday to look for Magic the Gathering product. It's something that, like, it's been around for a million years and I've never looked twice at it, because I found out that there's a brand new Magic the Gathering Doctor Who set.
Nice.
And I'm very naive, and I went and I asked a friend of mine who plays Magic the Gathering, and he's like, "Okay, well, I guess you could try Walmart; they might have it." And I found it, and it was like this: the one set was like, it was some ridiculous amount of money, like $65 or something like that. It was a Commander deck or something like that, and it was all like early Doctor Who, like the first however many Doctors. And I thought, well, that would be kind of cool. You know, maybe they have booster packs or something. You know, I don't play the game, but I liked some of the art that I saw online. And then I started asking my friend about it, and he goes, "Oh yeah," and he goes, "And plus," he goes, "they don't really kind of have, you know, like a lot of real individual stuff for those special parts of the game that have license." And he said, if they have booster packs, it's only going to be like about 12 cards, and those will be over $20. I was like, okay, well, that was a fun idea while it lasted. I got an education.
Kyle says he could probably hook you up.
Okay. And okay, all right. Thank you, Kyle. I just wanted. You know, I'm in the middle of Patrick Troughton storylines, and it's like I just thought it would be cool to have some Doctor Who cards with the early stuff.
Yep.
I never imagined that it would be that much.
Yeah. I bought it wholesale. I'm not paying Walmart money. There you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm going to move on to something we talked about a few weeks ago that I finally got around to reading, and that's
look at
Scott
that
Lang book.
Yeah.
Look Out for the Little Guy.
Wow.
And I will tell you that I'm pleasantly surprised by this book, because it wasn't what I expected.
Good.
I thought it might just be, okay, we're going to tell the story from Scott's point of view.
Yeah.
And we do get that some. But this is going to be kind of a roundabout way to describe this, but
okay.
When I first got into audiobooks, one of the first books I got was a book called Things I Overheard While Talking to Myself by Alan Alda.
I knew that title sounded familiar.
Yeah. Read by Alan Alda, written by Alan Alda. And what it was a collection of, being that he was Hawkeye Pierce, he would get asked to do commencement speeches all the time. So this book, because he's written a bunch of books, this book was a collection of commencement speeches he had done. But it was also the thought process that went into the speech, and then the speech. And his speeches were never boring. They had a theme.
Yeah.
But Alda has a very unique writing style, which I call shotgun. Because what he'll do at the very beginning of a chapter, he'll just fling out ideas, just a bunch of them. And you're like, that's all really random. And then the rest of the chapter, he connects all of them. And by the end of it, you're like, well, that makes perfect sense. And then you turn the page and he does it again. And I enjoyed that book so much because it was his life philosophy. It was a look at how the world was at that when he did that speech, all of that.
Yeah.
And I remember taking a lot of stuff out of it that I could use for myself. Approaches to life and stuff. Well, that's what this book reminds me of.
Oh.
Because he's not only talking about what happened, but he's talking about dealing with certain things, like dealing with getting out of prison, understanding that he couldn't just jump back into his daughter's life. There's a lot of parental stuff in here. There's a lot of trying to understand why his life has gone the way it has, and accepting that everything that he's done has gotten him to where he is, and where he misses the time, or he regrets the time lost with his daughter.
Yeah.
But he the relationship with Hope that doesn't get played that much in the movies is really strong in here.
That's really fascinating, because I mean, you're saying it's a real honest to goodness self-help book.
A little bit. He's still telling what happened.
No, I get that, but if it's got all that other stuff, I mean, that's great on the publisher's point of view, or whatever, as far as it's not just a piece of fluff to support the movies or whatever.
Yeah,
I mean, it actually has some wisdom, some heartfelt wisdom in it. I mean, that's really kind of fascinating. It's very meta, obviously.
It's very meta, but the purpose of the book, from the in-world purpose, was he was approached by Clint and Bruce to write the book, because they thought he's more of the everyman, and people who were still trying to deal with everything that happened would get to see it through the eyes of one of the heroes and realize they still had those same feelings, those feelings that the people are having. Ant-Man had those feelings. So from that point of view, I thought it was brilliant.
Yeah.
But the writer really captured Paul Rudd's voice, or Scott Lang's voice.
Yeah.
So you can easily picture him saying this stuff. The way he speaks, the cadence, the little jokes. There's a bunch of corny little jokes that he says in here too, which you're like, yeah, that's Scott.
Yeah.
So
like dad jokes.
Yeah. And I've read some books like this, like when the Castle was on, and they tried to do the Richard Castle books as actual books. And those were like, they were all right. This is surprisingly good. And like I said, there are honestly things in it that I'm taking away from it that might help me deal with certain things in my life.
I hope that it doesn't sort of get lost when people if there's a knee-jerk reaction to, oh, okay, that's funny. Yeah, it's like the book is talked about in the movie, and it's just another piece of Marvel, fluff or whatever. I mean, if there's some things of real value in there, I hope that gets out and people know, that it's not just a Marvel tie-in book, thing.
Yeah.
I wonder if Paul Rudd had anything to do with it at all.
Maybe.
Yeah, it would be really interesting to hear that they at least were sending drafts to him, and if you're saying that I mean, when you say it captured Scott Lang's voice, I mean, obviously that's Paul Rudd's voice, that would be really fascinating to know that he may have said, yeah, that sounds like me, or that part there doesn't really sound like, that kind of a thing.
Yeah. And it's written by Rob Kuttner, who is credited by Scott as being his co-author.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense, because Scott Lang, the character Scott Lang, is not necessarily a writer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that makes perfect sense that he would have a co-author, as many people who do nonfiction books or autobiographies do. Not everybody in the world is a writer. I love it. That's okay. That's really, really cool.
It's a very short book. It's only 200 pages, and it's decent sized print. Yeah. I was able to read it in a night and half a day.
Is there an audio version of it?
There is not, or I would have gotten it.
Okay. That's sad because they would have to get Paul Rudd to do it, and maybe he just didn't have the, oh, Paul, if you're watching this show, just knuckle down and do it, because then it's like completely perfect. If there's an audio book read by Paul Rudd as Scott Lang.
There's also some other interesting things in there. There's a letter from Cassie. There's a conversation with Hank, which I think really connects the characters even better.
Yeah.
So, I mean, basically, if you like the Ant-Man movies, and this is truly in between the two movies, but every once in a while he'll make a comment, and it's like, you're foreshadowing the movie.
That's great. Is the very end of the book the same, like the scene from the movie where he's reading? Okay, that, because if it wasn't that, then there's something really wrong with it.
Nope, same thing.
That's really great. Does it have an introduction by somebody else? Oh, they should have had, like, Bruce Banner writes the intro or something.
There's no intros, but there are quotes.
Okay.
Wait, no, there is an introduction, but it's by Scott.
Oh, okay.
The quotes are from Dr. Bruce Banner, introduces the man behind the hero and the hero I call friend. Sam Wilson. When the other Avengers wondered who should write a book about us, I knew Scott was the guy. He's been full of surprises since the day we met, and this book is no exception. Everyone should read it. My favorite is from Doctor Strange.
Oh, my goodness.
If you always hoped Ant-Man would write a book, you're in luck. I confess I did not, but I enjoyed it anyway. And then Clint Barton, I can't think of a better person to tell the world what it's like to be an Avenger than Scott. The book hits the mark. So
lovely.
Yep. Okay. So we got two shows to talk about.
One I'm dreading.
That craptacular ending of Ahsoka.
Okay. So Loki.
Let's get Ahsoka out of the way.
I'm unapologetic.
I don't have an actual problem with Ahsoka. I have a problem with the storytelling and how much telling they did over showing. That's consistent through the whole thing. I also not a big fan of where they left Balin's skull. I really thought that should have been, wrapped up a little more. It doesn't feel like it's the end of a season. It felt like, we'll be right back.
And we do not know at this very moment in time if there is officially going to be an Ahsoka season 2.
Nope.
Okay.
It might be an Ahsoka season 2, or it might go right into the movies.
I have thought a lot about Balin's, the character, and the last time we see him, and all of that. I don't know if it, like, exactly what kind of time that they had after Ray Stevenson passed, and where the show was at in construction or production, that they could have changed anything to make it a little bit more of an ending, for him. I mean, that's a huge question that's left there. Can they take anything that was intended for him and put it on Shin? Should they recast and just keep the story going exactly the way they thought it was? I don't think they can drop it all together, but I suppose they could.
No, I don't think they can.
Because
they're going into the whole 3 gods.
Yeah. I hear you. For me, the ending there, my thing about it was I didn't know who would be where at the end, and it went against some of my expectations. So in that sense, it pleased me because it told me something that I didn't necessarily guess. Who was going to get back to, if anybody was going to get back to the regular galaxy? And if so, who was that going to be? I would not have predicted the two main characters that got back and the two main characters who didn't get back. So in that sense, it was good and fine with me. It did feel like an ending. I mean, as much as like Empire Strikes Back had an ending.
Yeah, but we knew there was going to be a third movie.
Yeah. Well, we know that we know there's going to be more Mandalorian, and we know there's going to be this movie. What we don't know is if there's going to be any more just Ahsoka as a show,
right,
before the movie. We don't know if there's going to be anything at all, and with these actors and the studios not getting their heads together.
Oh yeah,
the writers have.
But I do have some issues with the finale.
Okay, and I understand it.
The whole thing with Ezra.
Hmm?
So Ezra gets on the Chimera,
Hmm?
is able to hide by putting on a stormtrooper uniform, gets back to our space or the main space, and then is able to get into a shuttle and get off of the Chimera without being attacked, and track down where the rebels are, and find the exact ship Hera is on to go report to her. And they just kind of went, yes, that all happened.
I have a fan theory for that. Is that he was allowed to do that? That Thrawn is that calculating and that much of a planner that he allowed that all to happen because he had a reason for wanting Ezra to get back. Also, Ezra's ship was being accompanied as they were approaching the fleet. So it may be that he radioed or something, and the Republic ships came in and directed him towards the ship, that Hera was on it. But I really do feel like Thrawn allowed him to do that. And I was trying to think of like, okay, what would, I mean, I can't think like Thrawn necessarily, but I thought one of the things could be psychological, that Thrawn liked the idea of Ezra warning everybody because that would be like a note of terror through the Republic, that he was out there and that they would have no idea when he would strike, and then that would maybe take down some defenses psychologically. I might be stretching a little bit on that, but I don't feel I'm stretching on the fact that Thrawn let him go.
But that's giving them a lot of credit.
Sure.
And it's assuming that people know how good of a tactician Thrawn is. They never say it in the entire thing.
Yep.
All we know about Thrawn is from what we know from Rebels or the books. They give us very little about him and what he can do or why he's supposed to be this big menace.
I do feel that there was I think enough in there in scenes with him with not Esmeralda. What was her name?
Morgan Elsbeth.
Morgan Elsbeth. Elspeth was the name of the princess in Dragon Slayer. So you'd think I would remember that, but I feel that there was enough transmitted there to show that he's a brilliant guy and all of that. But I accept what you're saying. Yep.
We never see him be brilliant. He loses the fight. He sends out troopers. They lose the fight. He recalls them. Oh, well, we distracted them long enough. There was. Again,
do you feel that they could have done it and kept it the same amount of episodes, or are you suggesting that it needed more episodes?
No, I think it just needed to be better written.
Okay.
Actually tell us or show us about the characters. Give us, they could have given us a flashback of Ahsoka and Sabine actually training when they were master and apprentice. but they just tell us they tell us why they fell apart. But it's not even Sabine and Ahsoka telling us. It's Hu Yang telling Ezra.
Yeah.
And that's just not good writing, telling all the background stuff. So yeah, that's my problem with the series. I think there's a lot of great concepts, but it also really feels like Dave Filoni is trying to push Rebels and Clone Wars into the live action.
Okay.
And he's been doing it ever since Mandalorian became
I
popular.
think that's a very fair assessment. He's not doing it on his own. Obviously, Lucasfilm is supporting this decision.
Yep.
I think for the most part, I have seen more support for it than not support for it.
Yeah.
Although, I mean, sampling, trying to get a cross section of opinions on the internet is probably folly. But I was actually pleasantly surprised that as the show was going on, I wasn't seeing the outcry like we got with Book of Boba Fett about how weirdly that was constructed, and all of that. I don't think that I really saw the suits coming coming in and saying like, well, we can't have that, we like they did with inserting the Mandalorian stuff into Book of Boba Fett that we've
No, this was definitely a Filoni thing.
yeah
But it's like I look back at Book of Boba Fett, and they introduced the character of Black Chrysanthemum, and I love that character. But if you're playing to the live action audience, wouldn't it have been better to use one of the Empire Strikes Back bounty hunters?
like Bosk.
Yeah.
Like Bosk.
Bosk, Dengar.
I know. Yep.
Zuckuss.
Yep.
Any of those guys could have shown up.
The movement is apparently to bring all of what is Star Wars, into live action, despite where it comes from, and show that it's all one big thing, which is, it's not necessarily a bad thing because they're going to connect with that many more fans. But yeah, there's absolutely a danger of Dave Filoni trying to use too much stuff in the same amount of space that any other one of the shows gets. I don't think Jon Favreau had really. I think was he like an executive producer on Ahsoka, or did?
Yeah, he had very little to do with this one.
Okay. Do you feel that if he had more involvement, that it might have been a clearer?
Yeah, because I look at somebody like Cad Bane who gets introduced, or the sheriff who was wearing Boba Fett's armor. When they introduced those characters, we at least got more backstory. We got a little bit of understanding of those characters.
Yeah.
Where we're not. It's almost like Dave is expecting you to go back and watch all these animated shows.
Sure. How did you feel that the Night Sisters were handled? Did you feel that was kind of like there was an expectation that you would already know a bunch of stuff about that whole thing?
I think so, because again, there was so little about them in the show itself.
Yeah.
Well,
I felt I got what I needed to know. They're bad. They're bad, and they work some kind of magic that may or may not have something to do with the Force. I will tell you though, where the one thing that I said, because I walked away, as I walk away from anything that I watch, and I just go, I liked it or I didn't like it, and that's usually what I do. But I will say that the last shot of Balin and where he is and what's behind him, I said, I don't think I know what the heck that is, and why is it like an important shot to kind of pull back and show where he is. And I had to go and find out more about that thing,
Well, because he's the heir to Gondor.
Yes, he is. You are absolutely right.
Yeah. I recognized it enough when I saw it,
Well,
but that's because a few weeks ago I dove into that because we saw them on the wall in one of the
mm-hmm,
in
mm-hmm.
one of the temples.
Mm.
So
One does not simply walk into Dathomir.
no, because it's a planet.
Okay, tell me this. What did you, what was one or two things that you really did like about Ahsoka?
I thought the fights were great. I thought the story had potential.
Mm-hmm,
I enjoyed Balin. I enjoyed um, Hu Yang.
mm-hmm,
Um, most of it, I thought the Na'vi were awesome.
mm-hmm,
Overall, I liked the series,
mm-hmm.
but I just felt like it wasn't as well written as it could have been.
As it could have been. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because it's obviously that Dave Filoni is not new to writing. I guess maybe one could, I don't know if you could argue that writing an animated show is any different from, but then again, that was a long-term, more open-ended thing, where this was a finite thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. It's almost is, to me, it's like I have to wait and see what the next steps will be, what the movie will be, before and getting the payoff. But I did enjoy it. I'm not sure that it's my favorite of the Star Wars series. I think I actually liked Mandalorian, let's say first or second season of Mandalorian, better.
Yeah.
It's hard to compare it to something like Andor, which is so different
Different.
in tone and
I
everything.
don't think you can compare Andor to anything in Star Wars.
Yeah.
It kind of exists on its own.
Yeah.
But I would put Mandalorian. I'd put. I really liked Obi-Wan Kenobi.
I did too. Here's one of the things that I really, really liked about Ahsoka is, as much as I liked Andor, to me it was getting maybe a little too far away from what I feel Star Wars is. And there were how many times in Ahsoka that I was just like, oh my God, this is so Star Wars.
Yeah.
Some of the space battles and all that. Somebody said, oh my God, in the space of how many minutes, it had every trope of Star Wars, in it. And whether or not it was just, regurgitating stuff from the past, it didn't matter to me. It was like, it hit me in the Star Wars feels. It was that Star Wars thing that I really wanted and kind of needed to see, after the thoughtfulness and the little bit higher level of intelligence of Andor, which is fine, but it didn't always hit that Star Wars vibe for me. I
totally get that.
I need mindless space battles, for the most part.
Yeah. By the way, the one edit I would do on Lord of the Rings is when Boromir says one does not simply walk into Mordor, to have him go, that's why we'll take horses, and then see them mount up and ride to the fucking place.
For me, it would be that I would put Tom Bombadil in the movie, but I don't think very many people would have appreciated that.
A little more Radagast the Brown.
Yeah. No, it's Tom Bombadil or nothing.
I like Radagast.
It was okay. Yeah. I mean, it's Doctor Who, so he was Doctor Who in Lord of the Rings.
Yep. All right, let's go ahead and move on over to Loki.
All right. Talk about a thinking man's show.
I gotta say.
Uh-oh. Let me sit back.
I absolutely loved the first episode.
Oh, I hear a butt coming.
No.
Oh, okay.
No butt. And I knew that the second one would have to be a little bit of a letdown.
Okay.
Because the first one was so good.
Yeah.
and giving us so many crazy ideas
Yep.
that when you switch to actually explaining some of that stuff, then it slows down.
Yeah.
And that's fine. I expected that.
Yeah.
But they embraced the Owen Wilson of it. Because you think of Owen Wilson now, you think of Wes Anderson because he's in so many Wes Anderson things. And they did so many Wes Anderson things in the first episode.
Okay.
Like the elevator where he's doing the time slipping. And Mobius is like, it's horrible. He goes, it can't be that bad. And then suddenly there's somebody else in the elevator. Totally a Wes Anderson.
Okay.
Or the other thing they did is Wes Anderson has this way of having two people talk, and he wants the banter to be quick. So what he does is he frames them in the exact center of the frame. So when you switch back and forth, your eyes don't have to move.
Right.
They're just on the face every time.
Right.
It picks up the pattern. It just makes it go faster. And they did that when they went to go see Obi, and then Loki time slipped.
Yeah,
they did it with the past Obi and Loki, and then they started doing it with Mobius and the current Obi. And Mobius slid over to make that work.
Right.
And then when Loki popped back in, he ran into him. So it's like them acknowledging he moved over.
Right.
And I was like, that's great. That is so cool. Just the feel of it is just such a Wes Anderson thing.
Episode 2 is maybe more character driven. What's funny about episode 2 is I feel that Mobius and Owen Wilson kind of took a little bit of a back seat, and it was more of Hiddleston's time to show his acting chops, and the guy that plays Brad Wolf,
Rafael Casal.
Yeah, who I thought, now I don't know a lot of these actors, but I thought he was pretty amazing. I mean, it's like you love to hate him. He really is an asshole, like Mobius says, and he proves it. But just that whole couple of different times in the supposed torture scene and all of that, Owen had his opportunities, but again, I think he did kind of take a back seat. His episode was more number one, than anything. I'm really enjoying it. I think I probably enjoyed both episodes equally. But I really felt like I was like, oh crap, I really kind of have to pay attention here because it's so much. And the concepts, like you were saying, it's like I had to remember what the hell was going on in season one, and then going into this. And to me, it's just heartbreaking when Loki and Sylvie see each other again, because it's just like you don't want it to be that way, but it is.
For me, the second episode was really, really good. The first one was brilliant. Ke Huy Quan as Obi. Just, it's like he's been there the whole time.
I know. And that's the funny thing, because people can say that, oh yeah, like this guy, and he's so important or whatever, and he's been there that whole time in season one. But you're right. It doesn't feel that way. It feels like, no, he was just doing his own thing, over there, and now he has to be brought into the picture. I love his him and Casey meeting.
We're all gonna die. Oh, hey,
absolutely sign that. Sure, I would.
Yeah, it's just so much fun. I mean, that's the thing is, I wasn't a huge fan of the first season.
Okay.
I'm more of a straightforward, I like Falcon, Winter Soldier, and Moon Knight, and Daredevil.
Sure.
So, but I enjoyed it. I mean, it wasn't a bottom one for me.
Yeah, no, sure.
But it wasn't the top.
Mm-hmm.
And this one, it just took everything they did right in the first season and went 11. Yeah. And I am more than happy with that. And I can't wait till they bring Victor Timely in.
I know, right?
Yeah.
My assumption is that because what's going on at the TVA needs the thumbprint or fingerprint of He Who Remains, that they have to go and find a Kang variant, not necessarily one of the more violent or mean, Kang variants, and then that's what's going on. That's my assumption at this point. How many episodes is this? Is it
6?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I love that they use Zaniac. It's such an obscure Thor character.
I know. I was saying this again. Marvel Studios does not have to do any of these deep dives because you know what? Millions of people watching it won't give a crap if they do that stuff or not. It's only a few tens of thousands of people that might give a crap.
Right.
And I love it that they do. They bother to do that.
Yep.
You have a side character or a little bit over here, whatever. Hey, they have their researchers dig deep into Marvel lore, and it's like, well, we can use this, and this. Love it. I mean, Brad Wolf, is in the whole thing with Zaniac.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is that, yes, they're pulling obscure stuff from their past, but they're just putting it in there as kind of an Easter egg. Oh, we need a movie title. Yeah. What movie is he in? Well, Zaniac. Yeah. And if we're going to be, then we give him the name Brad Wolf.
Yep.
But you don't need to know who Zaniac is or any of that stuff. Where with Star Wars, you kind of need to know some of that stuff now.
Sure. I love when Mobius, they're at McDonald's and Mobius is like, so tell me about Zaniac, and what did Brad say? He goes, it's elevated thriller or whatever he said.
Yeah, it's an elevated thriller. It's not horror, it's an elevated thriller. It's cinema. And I'm thinking they're poking fun at Scorsese.
Yes, yeah, yes, they are. Boom, love it, love it.
Yeah,
there's something about Owen Wilson's delivery which you look forward to his reactions to things. We can have a drink. It's okay. We're on the job, but it'll be okay. He's running, isn't he? He is absolutely running.
Oh, yeah. And Loki getting to use his powers again.
I know, right? You kind of forget that he's like a god.
Yeah.
Well, he's out of the TVA, so sure, why not? Yeah. I watched an Easter egg video that was very funny that it pointed out something that when he corners Brad and he has the shadow forms come up, there's no reason for them to have the horns and all of that because they're behind Brad. That's totally like an ego thing on Loki's part. And it's like, absolutely. That's a really funny, clever thing that, that to point that out, like, yeah, right. That's just Loki being Loki.
You brought up the Easter egg videos, and I've got a little rant on that. Small one.
Okay. All right.
One of the ones I think both of us watch, I think it's Screen Junkies.
I watch Screen Crush.
Screen Crush. Excuse me, the guy with the dog?
Yes.
Okay. He did a post or a video talking about how he didn't think Marvel was doing that well because the Easter egg videos were not getting the type of hits that they used to get.
Okay. Now, I stay away. I pretty much watch the first, 71 things that you might have missed. When he starts going on and then adding to those and doing those things where it gets into way more speculation, I don't usually do those. I do the initial talking about the shows, but
a lot of the Easter egg videos have taken on such a negative tone.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I actually like Screen Crush. Now, I haven't seen, like I said, I don't watch all of them, but I actually like his because he does tend to stay more positive because all the other people have those headlines like, why Loki is already an epic fail, it's like,
That's what he does with all his other videos.
Okay.
But that's my point is, if you're going to be negative about a show, then why would somebody who is interested in the show enough to watch an Easter egg video watch a show that's going to be negative?
Yeah. Yep.
So I think they're kind of killing themselves, because the Disney Plus numbers came out for Loki and it's doing great.
Good.
Good. So
good. I'm really glad to hear that. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm hoping that there's now, going to be a backlash against all the negativity that the majority of fans don't really want that. They want to celebrate stuff.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that that's what it is, because we've talked about it many times on this show about the feeding that negativity, just to get hits, just to get, to raise your prominence above the other guy being negative.
Right.
It's a stupid battle.
And that's the thing is with, everybody watched as Marvel rose, and then once they got to a certain point, everybody wanted to watch them fall, because that's the way society seems to be. Or the old the line from Batman Begins: you either die the hero or live long enough to become the villain. And that's kind of the way it is. So I look at that, and that's like, there's this negativity towards these movies and these shows now, and I just enjoy the hell out of them. Even the ones like Ahsoka, I enjoyed Ahsoka. There's a lot of great stuff in Ahsoka. And I talk about them because I love these things. If I wasn't enjoying the show, I wouldn't keep doing that show.
Yeah. It seems like an awful lot of time and energy to waste just to talk about something that you supposedly don't like, I'm wondering if these guys really are enjoying it, but they know, or their whole shtick is that I got to be negative, and they're just coming up with stuff,
could be.
because they get hits,
Now, I'm not saying that I like everything.
There
are things that I don't like, and
same here.
I remember when Paul was still the co-host, I went on an absolute rampage about the ABC murders on Prime, starring John Malkovich, as being the worst Agatha Christie adaptation ever. And I had, notations and examples.
Wow.
And, because it angered me.
Yeah.
It literally angered me how bad it was.
Yeah.
But
I think maybe there was one episode here that we talked about my disdain for Princess Bride, which is a very unpopular opinion, I've discovered.
It is.
I'm holding on to it. I am not letting go of that opinion.
Because it really is such a good movie.
It's awful. Yep. I champion your opinion on that movie.
There's a movie I absolutely love that either people who know it go, oh yeah, or they're like, what in the hell is that? And that, of course, is Buckaroo Banzai.
We've talked about this before too. Yes. Yeah. I totally know what you mean, because I totally love that movie, but you can't just sit anybody down and say, watch this, because you're going to get at least half of everybody going, I have no idea what this is or why you would think this is great or anything like that at all.
But I got a chance to see a couple behind the scenes interviews with Peter Weller, with Clancy Brown, and with John Lithgow.
At the time or later?
I think it was a little bit later.
Okay. So some time had passed.
Yeah.
Okay.
And all three of them talk so glowingly about everything they did and just how fun it was to make that movie how much they loved that movie.
I am so glad to hear that,
Yeah.
I am so glad to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, John Lithgow said he read the script, had no idea what the hell it was, and then the director showed up and explained it to him, and he went, oh, all right, I'm in.
You know what? That sounds like when the script was getting passed around for Star Wars, like even the actors are like, I don't know. Mark Hamill supposedly got it, but nobody else seemed to understand what the hell it was, but they were there and they were doing it.
Harrison Ford is such an interesting actor because I think he doesn't care about the movies he makes.
I couldn't get on board that train, yes.
I think he will give you his best.
Uh-huh.
But once that's done, he doesn't care.
Nope. It's okay, moving right along. And then
And
try to bring it up to him later, and it's like, nope, don't want to talk about it.
Indy and Mosquito Coast seem to be the only two movies he still talks highly about.
Yep.
You know?
There was supposedly a time that like he was somewhere where people were asking questions or whatever, and that somebody said something to him about what were you a Force ghost in Last Jedi or pardon me, in Rise of Skywalker, and he supposedly said, I don't know what the F that is. And that just shut it all down, right? And it's like, that is so Harrison Ford.
Oh yeah, it is absolutely. But you gotta love the guy.
Well,
He's just
because he's Harrison Ford, right? He's a national treasure at this point.
I mean, he gets into helicopters and rescues people off mountains.
Crashes little airplanes,
In the golf courses, yes.
Yeah.
Oh man, that is somebody I wish I could have met or could meet. I got to meet Mark Hamill once, and that was amazing because it was just in the green room at Comic-Con, and he ran into some friends, and we just happened to be sitting at the same big round table, and he started talking about recording for The Simpsons, and because I was at the table too, he included me in the conversation, and he started basically performing because he was talking about how he went in to do his scene, and this was when Luke shows up at the comic convention in Simpson.
Right. Yeah, I love that episode.
Yeah. And he's like, I'm jumping up on the chair and I'm swinging my lightsaber, like, ah. He says, and then I get out and Dan Castanella comes in. And Dan does Homer Simpson and the mayor. And there's a fight scene between the two of them in the episode. So Dan walks in there, sits down, puts his glass of water there, and starts recording the lines. And Mark's just like, he's not even standing. How can he do that? And then he starts doing the fight scene. But he's not like recording Homer and then recording the mayor. He's jumping back and forth and throwing in all the grunts and the sound effects. And Mark's like, I just learned a whole new level of voice acting that day.
I think Adam West is in that episode. I feel like he is.
Probably.
If I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it's got both Mark Hamill and Harrison Ford in that. Yep.
Yeah.
Or Adam West and Mark Hamill, not Harrison Ford. I don't think Harrison Ford was ever in The Simpsons that I'm aware of.
Do you know that I always wanted a TV show that had William Shatner and Adam West together in a retirement home?
Yeah. It's a shame that it never happened because they were friends. They did work. They worked together once.
On the Caesar thing, yeah.
Roman. Alexander the Great.
Yeah.
And it's a real shame. For a while, some people expected that Adam would show up on Boston Legal, which would make complete and utter sense.
Oh yeah.
Because my wife and I, we watched that Boston Legal for quite a while, and we got a really big kick out of Denny Crane But it's a real shame that they did not get back together on screen. Adam could have been on, what was is it Shit My Dad Says?
Yeah.
Was that one short-lived sitcom or whatever? Yeah.
Yeah, that would have been great for Adam to be.
He could have been on that too. Yeah, it's a real shame because I can see like they both have something of a similar delivery. Like I can just see a battle of the way they speak, back and forth. That they would each be doing like really slow.
Yeah.
Well, you know what it is Adam is like he draws it out, whereas Shatner he won't draw out words, but he'll have like longer pauses between words.
Yeah, just get Adam West, William Shatner, and Christopher Walken in a room together.
Oh my God!
Well, Shatner did work with Adam West at the end on that animated Batman movie, where he played Two-Face.
Yeah, because he was Two-Face. Now, whether or not they were in the same room at the same time, I have no idea. But yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
Have you ever heard? We're just vamping now. Have you ever heard the interview of William Shatner talking about his big break on stage in Henry V, taking over for Christopher Plummer?
I don't think so, no.
You need to Google that interview.
Okay.
Because what I didn't realize is the two of them grew up in the same place. And Christopher was like a year older or whatever, so he was always just a couple steps ahead.
Christopher Plummer's Canadian?
Yeah.
Oh, if I knew that, I've forgotten that. Okay, that's interesting because I know Shatner is, but
And there was one night that they were doing Henry V, and Plummer was the lead and got ill. And Shatner had to go on. He was the understudy. And he didn't really know the lines because Plummer was the type of guy who never took a night off. So they're doing the scenes, and Shatner is having some problems remembering the lines, and it's causing him to pause. And basically, this performance is where his unique delivery comes from.
Okay.
Yeah. And then there's also a scene where he's got, it's right after the battle, and his brothers, Henry's brothers on the stage. And the guy playing Henry's brother knew everybody's lines. And Shatner couldn't remember what he had to say next. So he walks over, he puts his hand on his on the brother, and leans in and whispers, "What's my next line?" I'm like, I have no idea. So Shatner pauses a second longer, and then turns around and then remembers and delivers the lines. Well, the response, the critic write-up on it was talking about this amazing performance of a thoughtful King Henry, who, and it was all the pauses. He goes, and the scene where the battle's over, and he just wants to take a moment with his brother, away from everything, just hit home so well. And Plummer read this in the hospital and immediately checked himself out because he was not going to let Shatner do another performance.
Right, sure. That's a great story.
Yeah, and Shatner claims that's how his particular cadence came about.
My wife always liked to spot Canadian actors in U.S. shows or whatever, because she could always detect their accents. And she always used to say that Shatner was one of the very few Canadian actors that was able to get rid of his Canadian accent. But she felt that every once in a blue moon, she could kind of hear it. But she said most of them still just keep going, and you can always hear their Canadian accents. But she said not him. He'd almost never ever betrayed the fact in the way he talked that he was Canadian.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like Ryan Reynolds being Canadian. It's like I forget about that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but I always think about Ryan Reynolds. I think back to Two Guys, a Girl, and a Pizza Place. Because not only is Ryan Reynolds in it, Nathan Fillion was in it.
Oh, wow.
Both of these guys in their early days. And it's like, you know, and you see everybody else in the show. The girl actually went on to be in Monk. And then the other guy just disappeared.
It happens.
Yep. And originally when the show started, they had David Ogden Stiers as a regular.
Oh, wow.
And then after about 2 years, they got rid of him and they got rid of the pizza place. It just became Two Guys and a Girl.
Okay. I was just watching the other day. I watched Oh God on TCM, one of my wife's most favorite movies, because
John Denver, George Burns.
She was a big John Denver fan. But David Ogden Stiers actually has a small part in that. He's the district manager of Food World.
That's right.
And it's so weird. Anytime David is in anything that's not MASH, to hear him talk normally, he's not doing the Charles Emerson Winchester voice. And it's just like, wait, that's too weird. Like, stop that. That's not you're not supposed to be talking like that.
Have you seen that really bad Justice League they did with him as Martian Manhunter?
I own it on VHS. Yes.
Yep.
You know what's funny is that they don't need to show him from the waist down because he had a kind of a pot belly or whatever. But other than that, I mean, it's as far as Martian Manhunter, it's not a bad portrayal. No. But it's just like, don't pull back, just kind of do some close-ups on him. Yeah, that's a really, really weird thing. It has some moments.
I think this is going to be where we wrap up the show, because early on we talked Alan Alda, and we're going to end with David Ogden Stiers. Perfect bookends.
It's like we planned it.
Yep. Okay. So thank you all for coming. Thank you, Jim.
Kyle, call me.